Hi. um, this video is gonna be about why I purposefully decided, chose to never have children. Um, and I did a video about this a long time ago when we were just talking about bipolar disorder, reasons for that with that. But um, some things have changed. So I wanted to revisit this um, with the changes in my life. Not that I would have been having any children at my age, but these are additional reasons why I definitely would not have children. I decided when about a couple years into being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, knowing that there is a genetic component to it, um, I definitely would never want anyone to ever have to go through what I did in those years before I was able to take lithium. And I was on every mood stabilizer you could imagine, you can name, because I would never, ever, ever wish anyone to go through what I went through. I would not be able to handle seeing my child, even though they were an adult, in and out of psychiatric hospitals, suicide attempts, self hatred. I mean, I would hope that if I did have a child, um, I would be able, and they did have bipolar disorder, I would be able to be enough support um, and get them on meds that'll work right away, and then you're fine. It doesn't always, you know, some people it is manageable, and some people struggle quite a bit. That was my original reason why I, I wouldn't want to perpetuate this disorder. It's confusing, it's painful, it's, I try to balance out the good times and remember those and not just the bad times. But since my I'm sure it was present in my teens, but definitely in my 20s, that's when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I definitely I did things when I was manic that I never would have done otherwise, never. And and there's such a strong pull when you're manic and depressed to behaviors that are not you, um, behaving not like yourself and making decisions with a brain that is not functioning properly. And suddenly, something like little kleptomania isn't a big deal because you'll never get caught because you're smarter than everyone else, which isn't true. And you do dangerous things. There's drug addiction, alcoholism, and promiscuity for some people, um, which could lead to. I mean, it's like a cascade of things and that can happen to someone when they're in a manic or depressed stage. And it's bad enough to experience it myself. Um, and only knowing after the episode that I was not right and I was doing things that are totally against my being, my person, my who I am, and knowing I can try to control how bad episodes are, um, or when I am having them, what to do to keep them at a minimum. But I'm constantly aware of the fact that I could go totally off the rails and do things that I can't say things that I can't take back. I can hurt people physically, emotionally, um, myself. I could hurt myself because I had very, I have these very interesting episodes where I'm delusional and my brain is telling me that happiness is on the other side. So if you die and go to the other side, you'll be happy. And so I'll be totally euphoric and happy and at peace and feeling really good about the fact that I'm going to SH, if you know what I mean, um, could like permanently hurt myself thinking that something really great is going to happen to me and I'm going to live happily ever after. I do display in manic episodes stalking behavior. So I don't want to see my kid struggling with the things I struggled with and could possibly be end up in jail, prison for something they did when they were manic. What also can happen to especially young men is having run-ins with the police while they're not in their proper state of mind and they're behaving maybe like somebody who's on drugs or that, and they get treated like a criminal when in fact they're suffering. People with bipolar disorder, it's very important that they have ID, like a medic alert or something, to say that they have bipolar disorder. And my smartwatch died, but I have a regular watch now. I'm waiting for my new one. I have a metal thing that's on the band, and it says bipolar on it, lithium, Seroquel on it, in hopes that they see that and not treat me like if I'm behaving strangely, and somebody calls the police, in hopes that they see that and will handle it differently. Because those years for me were torture. Even though I had people supporting me, I was lonely as hell. Oh, because I felt like I was in this little bubble and nobody could get to me. And it was really, really difficult for me, especially if I was depressed Sometimes uh, I couldn't speak, and I couldn't express myself. Blank, nothing. Am I having a bad day or am I depressed? What's happening to my brain? Why is my brain doing this? Why am I feeling this way? Why me? Um, Not being accepted by others, if they know, if they find out, um, especially if they're like a teen. Teenagers, kids are mean. They're awful. If people hear that, or you tell them that you have bipolar disorder, they immediately assume things that you're probably on drugs, you probably have chaotic relationships. And I mean, it might be true, but it may not be, but there are assumptions that you behave erratically, and which I mean is true when you're in an episode, but it may not be true. Everybody's bipolar is different, but the assumptions are the same. So um, it's almost like you don't tell anyone. It has to be a secret, or you've just isolated yourself. Um, and discrimination, I just couldn't see my kid, the pain of having a kid that wants to fit in and can't because this is for adults as well. We all want to fit in. I mean, unless you're a hermit, but then good for you. But most people want to fit in somewhere with at least one other person. And if somebody knows there's something wrong with you, you don't even have to tell them. They may just be able to tell there's something off about you and not want to hang out with you, not want to be friends with you, or let you in a crowd just to be your bully mate, which is a term I just learned, which are friends that just kind of keep you around to bully. And I had my fair share. And the worst of all is, what if I had a child and they were diagnosed with bipolar disorder and they hurt themselves in a permanent way, or even attempted to? I can't imagine what my mom went through. The first time I was in the hospital, I was 15. So I just can't imagine how, like, that's got to be in the back of their minds all the time. Like if I'm upset about something, or I'm crying about something, that's gotta, and if she knows, because I live with my mom, if she knows I'm upset about something and I'm isolating, if it were me, I know I would feel very, very anxious, not knowing, because I was a very good, nobody would notice I was off until I was way off. Way off. And so I can't imagine having that on your mind all the time. It's hard enough to be the person with it, but if it's your child. And then you have to consider, if I do get pregnant, can I take my medication? Because if I understand correctly, you probably can't take lithium. Um, I would probably put on something I've already tried and didn't work. Uh, so, what's going to happen with me for those 9 months? Um, I wouldn't be able to breastfeed after birth taking my medication. I highly doubt. Even if the child was fine and never had bipolar, gets like it's catchy, it doesn't end up having bipolar disorder. When you have a baby, well, when you're pregnant, first of all, can you take your medication? So what do they do with you when you get messed up? When your mood goes off the rails? And then you give birth and you have this baby, your sleep routine's gone, and that is my biggest trigger is sleep deprivation. That is a guaranteed way for me to go manic. Um, and then it just like snowballs until I'm not sleeping at all. Um, and I need a full night's sleep. Little naps don't cut it, so I would have to contend with that. And the risk for postpartum depression. So there's a scenario of you're told to stick to a routine, get plenty of sleep, take your medication. So what if you're a single parent and you have bipolar disorder and it's a baby and they won't stop crying and you need to get some sleep and you have to go to work and you're worried about things all the time? I would like to know from people that do have children and have bipolar disorder and how it went for you and went for them. But I also, in a bigger scheme of things, I would like to not perpetuate bipolar disorder. And what I mean by that is I don't want to produce another being that has it. And maybe if, this is going to sound awful, maybe if everybody that was diagnosed with bipolar disorder did not have children, it could be eradicated. There are a lot of conditions that are genetic, and parents have to think, are we willing to be ready for a child that might have this or that condition? And anyway, that I just couldn't have a baby around. I just couldn't take care of a baby. I can barely take care of myself. And I would just be in the hospital. I know it a lot, and I wouldn't know what. I guess family would have to step in and take care of the child because I wouldn't be able to be a parent. Stress is my second trigger, bipolar, and so that's like a recipe for disaster. And I think of those things, and I wouldn't want anyone else to go through that. So now I have further reasons that I'm glad I did not have children. Um, Ironically, I had, it turns out I had endometriosis stage 4, and I had a hysterectomy, so I probably wouldn't have been able to have any children anyway. Um, but I could have, I was engaged at that time. Um, Not the hysterectomy time, but when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And we could have gotten married, and if I could not have children, then he we could have adopted, for example. So the genetic part, I don't know. Even if it were done in a way that my genes weren't part of it, I still don't think I'd be able to take care of a kid, a child, properly. I think it all the stressors that are involved would um, cause me to not be able to be a parent. And um, a few years ago, I was diagnosed with something called essential tremor, and it's not that unusual um, of a disorder, but it shows up usually about your 40s or 50s, and causes hand tremor, a vocal like vibration to the voice, head tremor, and like head bobbing kind of thing, which is more prevalent with women. But when you look at my biological father and that side of the family, his siblings, my aunts, they have it bad. You can barely understand what he's saying because of his voice. I have it. Um, I went to a movement specialist, and I have it. My voice has it when I've been talking for so long. It starts to vibrate more. And my left hand's tremor. My right hand seems okay. So I've been fortunate because the women, well, he can't write anything anymore. Nobody can, if he needs help on the phone, they can't understand him. And the women, his sisters, have the head bobbing thing. And one of them, she can't feed herself. I mean, just barely. Someone else has to put the food on her plate, and she carries this giant spoon with her everywhere. And and she has the plate right here, and she just like this, and her head's just moving all over. So even though I mean, it's highly genetic, like dominant gene. So, but it you can't predict how bad it's gonna be for each person or when it's gonna show up. But I have half sisters that their hands are shaking now, um, and um, and then so there's another that's another reason I wouldn't um, excuse me, I wouldn't want to have children to have them have that, but it's not as strong as my reason being bipolar disorder. But there's more. I was diagnosed with autism, which I knew I had. I just found out they were assessing adults. and I wanted to verify what I knew to be true for years to actually be true. And so I was actually diagnosed twice, two different. Anyway, and right now we're trying to, it's like a tangled web of symptoms, and we're trying to figure out what is bipolar and what is autism. It's starting to look like my outbursts, my irritable outbursts, are probably more likely caused by the autism than the bipolar disorder. And and there also uh, it also appears to be that it is genetic. And so I was diagnosed with social anxiety, which I have, but it's part of the autism. It's um, it's simply an awareness of deficits that make me social deficits that make me anxious. For example, I'm leaving church and there's a group of people mingling. They do this every Sunday. They don't go straight to their cars, they mingle. And and it just occurred to me last week that I can't mingle. I don't, I can't. I know what it is, and I see people doing it, but my MO is to clutch my bag like this and head straight out the door to my car. And if somebody says hi, I'll say hi, and it's like I'm running away from them. It's and I am feeling anxiety, but I think it's a different type of anxiety. It's an awareness of my deficits and how it makes things difficult for me to communicate. So here is now another disorder that I would not wish on anybody. It's for me, uh, for me, because I am aware that I'm have these social deficits, and I always have. Um, at least now I can say why this is happening to me. But, in school, I would have outbursts, grade school, and I was bullied because I acted weird. And so I can't imagine seeing my child go through what I went through. The bullying was intense and very harmful to me. It's like I never got off that playground. I'm 53, almost 54, and I still have never gotten off that playground. Just standing against this brick wall, completely silent, completely flat, watching the kids, and I start to wonder, why can't I be like them? Why can't I talk? I can't speak. I can't move. I'm frozen. but they're moving around and laughing and running and what's wrong with me? Why are they being so mean to me? Um, I just, and then I got to the point where I talked myself into crying and I turned my face into the corner so nobody could see. I'm not gonna want I don't want to have children because I just couldn't handle um, witnessing my child go through that, especially when I went through that. And I'm still traumatized by that. Let's see. Let me let me go back a little bit. Um, with the autism, I get frustrated, especially when it comes to electronics. I can't. I have a hard time with them physically, like the physical, like I'm, like the other day the screen wasn't fitting my screen, and I couldn't see part of a form or something I was supposed to, and I didn't know how to fix it. Um, and I get so worked up that I can't think straight in order to fix it. And I have destroyed many an electronic thing, frustrated because something's supposed to be happening a certain way and it isn't. And I can't figure it out. And I know that other people can figure it out without freaking out. So, what's wrong with me? Um, and another thing is forms. Things, especially if the forms are on the stupid computer in the first place, but the paper and I see all the lines and the words and the check boxes and I get overwhelmed just immediately. But frustration causes my meltdowns, autistic meltdowns, and that consists of me yelling at whoever might be near. And I mean, I can be really mean in what I say while this is happening. So I can feel it starting to happen, and I find a place where I can be alone so I don't hurt anybody's feelings. I would throw things, punch the table like this, and I get bruises my arms, and I hit my legs, punch my legs, and cry and growl. I growl and jump up and down like stomping up and down. And I have hurt people's feelings when I was in that state. I have. And it's usually been my mom just because she's there. So that's when I started being able to usually contain myself, like put myself in a room, or leave the offending environment. One of my sensory, I do have sensory issues, and one of my biggest sensory trigger is babies crying. Um, Worse than that is a young child having a tantrum. I can't handle it. I can't. It is like there is a place in my brain, like some sort of pain center, and it goes right there. And it's not like I can't handle it, it's like I am in pain uh, when I hear that. What would I do with a baby? Um, I get overwhelmed when they're crying and get angry and or a child a little older, and if I'm having a meltdown and I say something mean or awful to or behave in a way, you don't even have to say anything. You can just behave in a way and hurt someone. I wouldn't want to do that. And so having a baby and not having conditions is hard enough. And so I don't think I would make a very good parent just because I do have bipolar disorder and autism. Now, I'm talking about me. I know there are a lot of people out there who have those conditions, those things, and have children and love their children and maybe did fine raising their children, but I'm 100% positive that I would not, I'm not meant to have children. Um, so, and I made a decision um, the first time in my early 30s, that I would never have children. I don't want to further. I just couldn't imagine seeing someone suffer like I did. That would be twice as painful. So, if you're watching this and you do have children, I would like to hear how it went for you. Um, did you ever consider the fact that, well, if I do have children, they might have one of these disorders, bipolar or autism? I'm a little more, well, it depends on the degree of autism. I think I would be okay with a child that, was like, I say like me, I'm supposedly level 1. Um, I think I'm somewhere between level 1 and 2. But the bipolar disorder is the big thing, because it can be so dangerous and detrimental to your life and not being able to live it the way you want to, especially when you're younger. Can't, I say you can't go to parties and stuff, but when you're young, you're gonna do it and do things that they tell you not to do. And part of that is the frustration and wanting to be like everyone else. That's usually somebody younger, but so that is my spiel about any psychiatric disorder. You might be okay that you would be able to help a child if they had something like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. Or you might be like me and say, I'm not going to have children with my genes and go through what I went through. So that's that. Bye.